Alright guys, welcome back to F1 News. Quick video here ahead of the Montreal Grand Prix. A couple of days ago we saw Christian Horner say that he believed Mercedes were trying to tell Hamilton to exaggerate the effect of the bouncing of the car in Baku to try and, push the FIA into making changes. Daniel Ricciardo has defended Hamilton though, saying that there's no way from what he experienced in the car that Hamilton was exaggerating the issues he was having. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Let's dive straight into things. This of course, I thought this was not safe for work initially, but yeah, Lewis Hamilton's shorts are just the same colour as his skin tone. But anyway, he's getting some work done right here. Like, grateful to have Angela about because obviously, yeah, stretching, acupuncture, cryo, whatever exactly that involves to try and recover from the issues he was having back in Baku, right? But yeah, he believes he's going to be okay, ready to go for Canada. Like Toto Wolff was even briefly saying that he reckoned that Hamilton would be able to race there, right? Or at least, could potentially miss races through the rest of the season. Doesn't seem like that's going to be the case, and Mercedes themselves agree that they probably push things a bit too far with the car set up there, and will definitely dial it back for future races to make sure the drivers don't have the same issues to the same extent they did in Baku, but certainly they might still arrive, based on the bumps that could be around the track here in Montreal this weekend. But Red Bull and Christian Horner reckon that actually Mercedes were overplaying the dangers of it, saying that, effectively, if I was the Mercedes team director, team boss, if I was Toto Wolff, I'd be telling my drivers, look, really put on a good show here, right? Get out the car, hold you back, really struggle to get out the car, talk about, complain about it on the radio all the time, as Horner said, I'd tell my guys to bitch as much as they possibly could on the radio, make as big of an issue out of it as I possibly could. Which of course, look, that might make sense from Horner's POV. Mercedes have an incentive to do this, to try and make the FIA change the rules or whatever they might do, bring back some sort of active suspension type stuff, so that teams can deal with this in certain ways to make sure this isn't an issue for the drivers going forwards. But Red Bull seem to have found the balance in such a way that I don't have to worry about that too much. But yeah, effectively Horner was saying, look, Mercedes probably exaggerating this a bit, and Hamilton was playing up to the cameras the issues he was having. Now, Daniel Ricciardo does not reckon that was the case at all. He was asked about this a couple of days ago after feeling rattled himself after bouncing up and down on that straight at Baku, and he says the following, right? There was talk about Lewis after the race. I saw some of his onboards. I saw pictures of him getting out the car and stretching his back. He wasn't exaggerating. It was really that uncomfortable. It's a good thing that it's very visible though, right? Saying that look, Hamilton, he wasn't exaggerating, but it's very clear why he was suffering these issues, right? We could see him on the straight, the audio of the car bottoming out. It just felt incredibly painful just to watch it, let alone to experience it in the car. You can hear it jumping and bouncing around. From the images, you can see the helmet is moving around too. It's not normal or comfortable. The position we sit in the car, you don't have much room to move about. We're not prepared for the impacts. If it's up to a rule change or the way teams are setting up the cars, I'm not 100% sure, but I wouldn't like anyone to go through any unnecessary injury or pain. We've spoken about it throughout the season, Baku being such a big one. I'm sure it will get discussed in the drivers' briefing on Friday before the Canadian Grand Prix. So we shall see, right, because whether the teams can come to some sort of agreement as to what kind of a ride height they want to run to make sure this doesn't happen, even though Toto Wolff said that despite even if Mercedes kind of raise the ride height, that's not going to fix their bouncing issue. It might fix their porpoising issue, even though they don't really have that much of it nowadays. After the Spain update, kind of reducing the flex in the floor, it seems like Ricciardo certainly does want some resolution to this relatively soon. Now, what exactly that is, that's another question entirely, but he does not reckon that Hamilton was exaggerating anything based on his personal experiences in the car, also experiencing a similar thing this past weekend. He also went on to say the following in the article, right, I definitely think Lewis is as capable as ever. We all knew George was quick. He is proving he is very good, but I also wouldn't count Lewis out for having the ability to win this weekend, for example. I don't think he's lost anything, not at all, right? So look, if the car's good enough, Lewis Hamilton should probably be there or thereabouts. I feel like, people are writing him off very quickly. I feel like that's always a relatively naive thing to do when it wasn't that many months ago where Hamilton was driving some of the best races he'd ever driven in his career from Brazil onwards the end of that season. Hamilton was on fire at the end of last season. It's not like he's forgotten how to drive, but in a car that isn't particularly good, George Russell, of course, having much experience in the Williams the last few years, is probably going to be better at driving an S-box, as Toto Wolff very colourfully described, than Hamilton might be given his experience the last few years in a rather good car. If they do have a good car, you'd expect Hamilton to be back there, and of course Ricciardo says, look, I don't think he's lost anything. Even the likes of Vettel and Alonso have been kind of saying this the last few weeks or so, that look, it's not always about the driver, it's about the car and the material and the machinery that they are working with, and the other drivers look, Lewis probably hasn't lost anything, it's just the car that isn't really where it needs to be, and of course George Russell is doing an absolutely stellar job in his own right as well. Now, of course, there's no guarantees that even this weekend it is going to be better. We've seen some drivers say as well that it is going to hurt this weekend. Drivers are hoping for a kind of bouncing fix. No guarantees they're going to get it though. And as Ricciardo said, potentially in the kind of drive for breathing here on Friday, they might be able to find some sort of solution this weekend. We'll see if any more news comes out on it very soon indeed. And just to mention this before we close out the video, I thought this is rather interesting really looking back at the last 8 years. Since the start of the hybrid era, the championship leader after 8 rounds in terms of Constructors World Championships, how many points did they have over the years. We can see Mercedes in some of their more dominant years, 2019, 2015 and the like. They had an awful lot of points after the first 8 rounds. This year, though, in the last couple of years as well, Red Bull this year, despite the earlier hiccups, have 279 points after the first 8 rounds. That's pretty much on par with most of the kind of constructors winning campaigns that a lot of these constructors have had over the last several years. Right? It is rather interesting actually to look at this just because they've had such a torrid start, but the last few races, Red Bull have scored pretty much every single point that was up for grabs. So definitely goes to show this might be the way the championship is swinging once again. But very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new as always. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.